Hello, everybody. It's Heather with the Leadership with Heart podcast. And today I am thrilled to have Brandon Powell on the show. So I happened to see him out on LinkedIn, and it was a post just about family. And it was all heart. The post was all about heart. It was all heart. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to talk about this as a person in the business world, a CEO of a company, but then like kind of showing that transparency was a big deal. Then I saw it again happen. And I'm like, okay, did I get you on? Are you on? Are we scheduled? Go to make sure you are on my show. So welcome, Brandon. I can't wait to show everybody why you're on here.
Thank you so much for having me, Heather.
So tell everybody right now where you are in your leadership journey.
Yeah, so I'm about 5.5 years in since I founded my company, HatchWorks. And before that, I was in different leadership roles in corporate America, specifically with AT&T. And I worked in pretty much consulting since I graduated college. Leadership has been something that started for me really at a young age. I think I started it was a lawn mowing business when I was 12 years old. And that kind of moved into working at the grocery store and kind of moving up. And even at a young age, trying to get involved in leading teams and learning about leadership. I think it was something that came natural to me for some reason. I just wanted to be, kind of take that lead and have people and help get people where they want to be.
I love that. I often wonder, where does your drive to lead come from? Like, I know you started it, but did you have a parent who kind of just seemed had certain leadership tendencies? How did it start? I know you said that you started around 12, but was there a driver for that?
Yes, absolutely. I actually grew up, was raised by a single mom. And so the reason I started working at 12, not that I knew what was going on, was I wanted certain clothes, right, to fit in school. I wanted a car when I was 16, and I had to be able to buy those things. And, I had a sister as well. So my mom was working full time. It was just something I had to do to survive, to get the things that I wanted. And so that was kind of instilled in me at a young age. My granddad was kind of like my dad growing up, and he was always telling me about hard work. If you work hard, you'll get where you want to go. And I think for me, starting so young as an entrepreneur, it takes such drive to be able to really you're going to have so many obstacles. And I had a lot of obstacles even at a young age, just growing up. I grew up fast, had to take care of myself, my sister, when I was fairly young, which is the story of a lot of people. But I think that's what kind of created that drive and that sense of it. And I tell, it's like kind of a psychology term, but that sense of not being in control of your childhood and then starting a business and kind of what are the things that you can control.
Yeah, I know exactly where you're coming from with that. Just recently, a few days ago, found out my father had passed away, and I hadn't seen him in like 19 years. And when I think about kind of the divorce, the childhood, just all the things, there were a lot of things that were not the greatest there, but it did produce in me a couple things. It produced in me like that idea of like, what can I control? Who I can control me. I see that this person's not in control. There was some issue with drugs, and so I was like, I want to make sure that I am more in control of me and I know what I could influence. And so taking that control is really critical. So I totally get where you're coming from with that. Such a powerful driver too, right? It's one of those things that it never goes away. I don't know about you too, thinking about that kind of sense of not having enough or not being enough or not all those things that might happen as you come from that household too, right? That it really is a huge driver, isn't it?
It's huge. I mean, it took me till I was in my late 30s going through actually a lot of just therapy. I'm open to that. Like I believe in, mental health and stuff. And this idea, as I got down to the root cause of what is kind of driving me in all these, it was that fear of not being good enough. Guys don't like to talk about this stuff, but as a young boy, if you don't have your dad is who validates you as a man, as a human, as you're good enough, son, you can go do you can do this. But no, that started to come full circle for me as I started to figure out, okay, that drive of not being good enough is why I always wanted to like make sure I was, if it was in sports, I wanted to win. If it's in business, it's like, first I wanted to get to 1 million, then I wanted to get to 10 million. Now I want to go to 100 million, it's like exactly. Nonstop.
And then it's never, people were like, well, pat yourself on the back. You're doing a good job. You're like, uh-huh.
Yeah.
Right? It's
Yeah.
not really. It's like, I'm
That's right
still
on. That
on the
is so,
mission.
and that's for me as a leader, one of my blind spots is that I don't stop long enough to say, man, this is cool what I got. And honestly, like the daughter post that you saw on LinkedIn was me kind of seeing things through her eyes and having to pause to be like, man, I'm grateful. I have this daughter. I have a business. Like she forces me to slow down because I can't multitask. I can't even be on my phone and watch her after work because she's, getting into stuff. And that's caused me in a good way to look and say, wow, okay, be grateful at where you're at right now. I know you want more. So I've started to get some balance in that, just looking at things through her perspective.
Yeah, I do try to get that with my kids too. I am vibing with you right now, Brandon. I have
Mhm.
4 children, so
Wow, congrats.
life is, thank you. Life is full. It's crazy. They challenge me all the time. They bring me on the carpet and beat me down when I'm not in alignment with what it is I say I value. So I completely, oh my gosh, I completely get this. So I am curious to know, like, so now you're building the company. What are the people that report to you? How would they define you or describe you as a leader?
So, servant leader. I mean, that's what I've hired across my company. I'm the CEO, but I'm no one's executive officer. I'm the chief enablement officer. That's what my job is, to enable. And when I look at enablement, I started my company with one goal: build a best place to work. That's it. I learned a lot at some big consulting companies at AT&T. I learned things, what I wanted, what I didn't want. And I've tried to build a very flat organization as we scale, but also I'm here. My employees are my customers. So we have customers, right? Because we're in the services business. We build software for companies, and we're in services. So we try to create raving fans of our customers, but I try to create raving fans of our employees because that's what turns our flywheel. So if our employees are happy and they love working at HatchWorks, they're going to do good work for our customers, and our customers are going to buy more and buy more. And so I always, and that's kind of Richard Branson focuses on that, right? Take care of your employees and they will take care of your customers. And I truly believe that. But that's, for me, it's about leading, but caring about them in terms of the environment that they work in. For us as a company, a big part of, and we can talk about this more, Hatch Futures, about giving back to that next generation and driving them into STEM education is a huge part of where I'm investing. And we're taking, part of our profit and putting it right back into our communities to try to create that next generation of engineers and people that can work in STEM.
Oh yeah, let's talk more about that because I think that might have been the second post. I can't even remember. I just know
Okay.
that it
Okay.
sounds familiar, but I love it. So just a little bit more about that, because this is when we think about caring leadership, we're talking about looking for the greatness in others. We're talking about empowering people. So that includes a lot about enabling and like giving them the right tools to grow and things like that. So yeah, I'd love to hear a bit more about this Hatch Future program.
Yeah, and of course, so just to take a step, a part of our purpose, part of our why, right, is to use our culture, our people, and technology to help both our customers and our communities, right? So communities is in our purpose, our why we wake up. I have engineers in 5 different countries: Costa Rica, Colombia, Peru, United States, Argentina. And in those countries, we're blessed to live in the United States. We got our problems and we got our stuff, but there's a floor in terms of poverty and stuff, and we have a lot of that here. But in some of these countries like Colombia, there is no floor about how bad it can get. And so with Hatch Futures, we're trying to get in Colombia, just like, I'm from Atlanta. We have some rough neighborhoods, like Bankhead, one of the poorest zip codes in the United States. We want those kids to get jobs that are high paying in technology. So all of our purpose with Hatch Futures is to drive engagement and awareness so that they know there's something besides being a police officer, school teacher, social worker, and there's 2 other jobs that are illegal that they see all the time, because most of the time daddy's in jail and mom's, it's not a good situation. And so our purpose with Hatch Futures is really to kind of empower that next generation in tech specifically. Where we've gone, though, is now we've got an internship program. So we can actually take a kid that's maybe in high school. Hey, look, you can go to this 2-year school. Same with Colombia, Costa Rica. get your tech degree, because most of the time you can go for free if you're below a certain poverty line. We'll give you an internship when you come out of there. Okay. We might not have a permanent job for you, but 6 months, typically these internships are longer. And then we'll either help you with our customers, you can work for them, or if we've started hiring our own associate level. We just started that this year. So now we can take them from awareness in the high schoolish level, right, where they make that decision. What am I going to do post high school? Drive them down that path. Because my mom she's like, you will major in management information systems. Like, I had no idea what to major in, right? She told me that. And these kids are not getting that. And that's where this all comes from, because I'm so grateful that I am where I am. And I tell my employees, like, you guys are the highest paid, kind of occupation in your countries, in the United States, in Costa Rica. You guys are like, we're blessed. And they all have the coolest stories. Like, some of them grew up with no water, and it's just amazing. And so the Hatch Futures is really about that part of our purpose, which is, kind of rebuilding in these communities, because the whole reason that we're even in these other countries is because we can't make enough developers in the United States. Mm-hmm. That's the bottom line, right? There's a skill shortage, and we're trying to help replenish that both in the United States as well as in these other countries.
As I listen to you, Brandon, I hear so much of Daniel McCollum. I just spoke with him last week, but I had him on my podcast a couple times, and then he also was on my last book, The Art of Caring Leadership. And his firm is called Torrent Consulting, and they do Salesforce, like the big Salesforce providers or creators. Yeah. I don't even know what the word is.
No, you got it. Yeah.
They're similar because they're in Nicaragua, I believe, and that kind of thing. And it's all about like the communities, the same exact thing. And talking about what I loved about it, one of the things he said is breathing personal mission into people, breathing it into them, because often they don't have that in themselves. And so as your mom did that for you, and as my grandmother did for me, and as I do for my kids, I think it's so important to do that for people who it's just not in their purview. Their parents didn't have it in them, so they can't give them what they don't have. Yeah. And so I love, as a leader, if you're able to kind of be that extension I just think that's just powerful.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things too, and I don't know how you feel about personal mission, but for me, I've kind of like put all these pieces together. I've worked a lot in volunteering and I finally put it all together, that my purpose on this earth is to help people reach their full potential. So that's that kid in the slums of Colombia, or, one of my employees, that I want them to grow. If that means they grow and they leave, which is happen, that's a good thing, because they grew. And that's kind of that's my mission for growing my company, is not about revenue. It's about creating more opportunities to grow more leaders that are going to go somewhere else. And they're at some point, most likely. And now I've finally been able to kind of apply business, but then also what I want to do from a nonprofit side, which is help young people. They don't see it. They don't understand that they can make 3 times as much money, literally end a poverty cycle for a family in some cases, because the money is so much greater than what they would do in some of these other jobs.
Love it so much. Oh my gosh. Okay. So everybody can hear now. At this point, we hear that you are a leader with heart. That's a given. And now I want you to just tell us a time, though, because we all have those times when maybe you felt like you weren't as clearly aligned with what you think caring leadership should look like. You felt like you might've been off. What was happening in that scenario specifically? And then what did you do to kind of solve for it, or at least become more enlightened through it?
Yeah, no, it's so COVID had an impact on our business, but it wasn't the same as like March of 2020, April 2020, when a lot of businesses just stopped. I have friends, they had retail, and it's like, it's over. We're closed. We can't come in. And so I think I got a little bit complacent during 2020, because we had another record year in terms of growth. But what was not happening is we were not able to continue to grow our sales pipeline. And I was kind of so focused on how do we keep our team motivated during COVID, that I kind of took my eye off the ball of the numbers and kind of really looking at what's our pipeline, what's coming next. Oh, we're going to do the best year we've had. Then 2021 hit, and contracts started to expire. Some of our customers were impacted later by COVID and started to pull back. Long story short, we got into a situation where we were losing money quickly for the first time ever in 5 years, losing money. And as a leader, I chose to ignore some of the data. And I did justify a lot of it is that I care about my employees. And I do, I care about them. So 1 month went by, 2 months went by, month after month, more people came to the bench. What that means is they're not billing customers. And in our business, if we're not billing customers, we're paying people to sit there and do nothing. And so 3 months went by, 4 months went by, 5 months went by. The number kept getting bigger that we were losing. And I made a decision, early on, all right, people over profit, because I believe that, right? I didn't start my company to make a ton of money. I started it to build the best place to work. But what happened after 6 months or so of these people sitting on the bench that I'm paying, they started to get restless and like they want to work on good projects. They want to do things. And so they even started to be a little bit of a negative pull on the culture, because we had people in other projects and we were growing in some parts, but specifically in the US, we were greatly impacted. And I thought I was doing the right thing, and that caring was just letting them ride that out on the bench. But ultimately, I let that go on too long. Some of it was the stories that I told myself that, if you really care about them, you keep everybody, keep them there. Meanwhile, most companies almost every company I've ever talked to in that space, they would have cut. Now, I think what I could have done differently there was definitely looking at it like, all right, let's time box this thing. Let's not cut immediately like a lot of people would do. Let's look at a plan and let's actively communicate with these team members of what's going on. I think I tried to be transparent, but I don't think they really understand how bad it was behind the scenes.
That's interesting. I was thinking about that. So it's like the transparency, sharing with them what's happening, what you're attempting to do, so that you can show them your heart, and then involving them more in the thing that they needed to want to stay. So it's like, maybe, so things were slower. They weren't doing anything. They were feeling like they weren't living up to their fullest potential. We all know we want to do that in our lives. We want to have meaningful work and feel like we're contributing, but like maybe there was another way to do it. And if you were to include them in like a round table or have this discussion where you could find out like what they would need. Obviously we'd like them to be fully actively working, but there could be other things internally they could be working on, other internal projects, something that might have kept them. I was thinking about that too, as you told me the story before we started rolling, of like what impacts could have happened. You may still have had people leave, but could you have, if you would have involved them in the change they were seeking or in the thing that they needed in the moment, would they be more tied in because they knew it wasn't going to be a long-term thing, and that they had a hand in creating an environment in the temporary that could get them through, that could still make them feel useful,
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a great point. I think other things I could have done were, looked at some of everybody else was hiring by end of 2021. These skill sets that my team members have are high in demand. I could have had conversations with other companies that have the same skill set needs and, even facilitated to some of them, hey, look, I know you've been on the bench for 3 months now. I know you want things to do. I've talked to a partner, similar culture. Is this something, I could have facilitated, conversations so that they didn't feel like they were abandoning me or leaving me. Some of that is we built such a strong culture that they were really loyal to HatchWorks. They would not have stayed that long. It's like, all right, where's this going? I've been on the bench a month, 2 months. So I don't regret, kind of giving it a chance to work out. I regret how long I let it go. It kind of got out of control to the point where I just didn't even want to look at what we were losing. What I've done. Do you want to talk about kind of what I've done since then to try to pull through? So now we're back to break even business. I'm not ashamed to say, we've always grown. We've always made money. Last year was the first time that didn't happen, but some of the people left that sat on the bench, and finally we've started selling. We don't have a bench really anymore, and we're growing back like crazy. We've already set record sales than we've ever had. We would have been faster if I would have made decisions differently last year. But I've hired a CEO coach to keep me accountable, because that was the biggest thing that happened during that time is I wasn't keeping myself accountable for like I said, how do I make this smoother, round tables, like you said, how do I move this forward? So I hired a CEO coach, and every 2 weeks for an hour and a half, like he's asking me the hard questions. he's like, what are you doing? He would not have let me handle that situation the way I handled it. So I felt like it came down to accountability, because I owe that to all of my employees. Because remember, we have 150 employees. So even if there's a fraction of them that are not on projects, you still got all these ones that are on projects that are like, what I didn't realize, I'm actually hurting them too, because I was hurting the future of where we're going, right? By burning through cash and stuff like that. So I decided to hire a CEO coach to keep me accountable. I've hired a fractional CFO. So that on the numbers thing, it's just like, after the first 4 years of being kind of the CFO, and it's beyond my pay grade and education. so I hired a fractional CFO also, right? The numbers don't lie. The numbers kind of, you gotta, and I'm not like I said, I'm not like, oh, we got to do whatever we do to make a profit. We've got to, like, that's the most important thing, because that's not for me. But you have to manage your numbers. You have to know where your business is at. And that's also critical to helping the rest of the team reach their potential, right? Because the more profitable we are, the more we can grow, the better we can pay, the more benefits we can give them, just a better ecosystem we can create.
I love that. Yeah, I agree. And now, okay, because I could go really deep with that, because it's such good stuff, and just great work. And thank you for transparency, the openness to share, to be vulnerable, like all of those things. It's so important. And I did the same thing. I hired a CEO coach. Actually, this year is when I did it. It's same exact thing. It's like, what am I doing? Like, someone's got to help me put more process in place. And I'm on the tail end. I'm like tiny compared to where you're at, but still, like I just decided I'm never going to get to where I want to go unless I have somebody saying, okay, what's the process? Blah, 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 let's get this in place. And it's been super helpful. Okay, so now that it's time to kind of turn the tables, where you become like the podcast host, and you get to ask me any question that you have, and I'll answer it.
Okay. Well, look, I mean, I feel like you have a real special niche that you're helping companies with this whole transforming, leadership teams within culture, right? In terms of caring. Is there, and I know you do this for a living, right? Help transform these teams. Is there one, I'm just curious from your perspective, is there one point, like big thing that you see that teams don't do that is like the smoking gun, or is it just a bunch of things? I was just curious, since you work with so many clients and been doing this for long, wrote books, podcasts, all this stuff, because I want to know, in case there's others that I know that could maybe use that type of work.
Yeah. The biggest thing that I've come up with is a lack of listening, of understanding really how to listen from beginning to end, so that at the end, the people that you have, whether it's customers or employees, that they feel heard, valued, and understood in the process. And that's why when you heard me say like round tables, or like bringing them in and hearing them, but also letting them be a part of that solution. I was in a merger some years ago. I was in a company that was going through a merger, and it became so painfully obvious, because I'd also had a couple reorgs after that in a companies that were going through reorgs, and they don't actually ever tap into the people who have the most information about the problem they're facing. So they don't go, for example, to the customers if a product is failing, if their MRR is down. They don't create customer councils to listen to them, find out what's happening. If their people are leaving, or you can sense a change or shift in the culture, even if they're paying attention, they don't actually go to the employees who know the most about what's happening on the front line to really say, how can you help us be a part of the solution for the problem we're having with our business? And they don't use those voices. So the listening process is, I'm really digging deep to understand through the stakeholders who know more than you do, because the people at the top don't know more. They know more about the financials.
Yes.
They know more about the market, like the big market, but they don't know about the things, the most important things, which are the customers, because the frontline people know more about the customers. What's happening with just like the flow of process. They don't know as much, because it's the people at the front that knows that. So I would say listening. Listening is the biggest thing, a lack of understanding the process of listening. So what we do at Employee FinX, that's my firm, our main focus is helping to create cultures of listening, where the voices can drive the strategy that can give you all the outcomes you're looking for. So,
I love that. I love it.
It's critical. It's critical. It's kind of the passion point for us, and our whole focus of the work we do. So thanks for asking. That was a great question.
No, I mean, it's again, my goal is to build a best place to work. And I love the listening. I do 5x1s, right? No matter how big. I tell my team, like, when I can't do a 5 every week, I get 5 typically at the, these are not managers, director, and these are the people, engineers, different levels, senior, mid, associate. and it's a listening. That's how I learn. I tell them it's anonymous. I'm not going to tell your manager. I want to have an open dialogue with you. I have no agenda. I just want to hear what you guys are saying. But I still think we can, I try to push one-on-ones, but I love your thoughts. I think we tend to talk a lot more than we listen across the board. Me too. I feel like I don't listen at times when I just need to shut up and just take it all in and then process it and come back. So I love what you do though.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Listening is critical. And there's so many different ways you can do it. I love the fact that you take the time as a CEO to do it, then push, trying to really elevate that from your managers or supervisors, making sure they're doing it, and then doing it above organization. If you have anybody in HR, if you have an HR team yet, or one person that does it, making sure they're listening above organization, because the aggregate themes that you boil up when you listen above organization is pretty powerful. We have a lot of blind spots when we don't do that. So yeah, it's good stuff. Okay. So for those who are listening right now, what might be a couple pearls of wisdom you'd leave them with? Something that, as we think about the ones who are listening, most people are going to be leading at least a team, one person, or could be in your same situation, entrepreneurs or CEOs of companies. What might be a couple things you think they could use maybe this week just to get them by?
Yeah. Well, I mean, if they're entrepreneurs, I truly believe in having a tribe to go on the journey with you. Not necessarily for the X's and O's, but for someone. You mentioned listening. You need someone to hear you, because being an entrepreneur or being a CEO at a highest level, it can be lonely, because you can't maybe say everything you want to say. And so if you can get a group of what would be considered peers, I'm in EO, but there's all kinds of different organizations that you can be in, but having that tribe as a sounding board, I did it in my third year. I wish I would have had it from the very beginning. Because even if you're, say, a VP of product, even having VPs in other companies that are not directly associated with what you're doing, you can talk about things that they're going to relate to the same problems, most likely, because they're in a similar role or a similar function. But I think it's a mindset thing, because I tell most people that, leadership many times is 90% mindset, and how you handle things. Like listening is one, but how you react to things is a big deal. How calm do you stay when you do things? How well do you communicate? A lot of it's just mindset. And I feel like having a tribe can be a great way to, have a good mindset, because you have someone that you can vent to and kind of share with.
I love that so much. I do think that having that, I always talk about having that circle, a supportive network of people who also so they'll tell you things, and they'll also tell you things that aren't so great. So they'll call you on the carpet when they know you and who you are and what your character is, and they see you going off course. So it's having both of those who uplift you, those who enlighten you, those who challenge you, I think is so critical. So this is really good stuff. And for those who are listening now, hopefully you're taking this all in. There's so many nuggets, like just ponder and let this all based of all the things that Brandon shared with us. And this has been, really helpful, Brandon. I'm happy I saw you and kind of pulled you out and said, wait, come here. I want to highlight you, because I think there's a lot of brilliance in you and just the whole mission of your company. And so I appreciate you being on here for sure.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
And thanks everybody for listening to the Leadership with Heart podcast. Be well.